years. One, their keynote speaker, actually it was yesterday, their keynote speaker, I'm not a security guy, so I didn't know, maybe he was someone who is the guy to have as your speaker just because of his knowledge and who he was, but his delivery was awful. You went to the exhibits and they were just another web page. They were a little interactive, but the only thing good they had, John, is they took our idea, and if you went to so many booths and you did a few things, you got points. Once you hit 40 points, you got entered in for all the cool prizes. Scooter was their top prize, which if I do win that, maybe I'll then barter it off. I've got a Harley in the garage, so I don't think I'll be riding the scooter. Anyway, so we're trying to find some exciting ways to try to keep everyone networked. We sure appreciate John and everything that he does and keeps his gears going at night. And really effective as well.
So we're looking at using that platform for a virtual job fair as well.
Correct. So we're really trying to get a real read on when the demand comes back. I mean, there are a few companies hiring, but there's still a lot out there that just is not yet. And I think this rebound in COVID is now dampening some folks a little bit, trying to decide what that future brings us. So we'll just have to stay tuned as we move forward with it.
I think it's moving back, but from a virtual perspective, right? So if you have leadership skills and you have experience in leading teams that are remote, I think that bodes you well in this current environment, at least until you get into a position where you can actually lead a team in person. So that's my point of view.
How about other first timers?
I think Leo is there.
I think Troy, yeah.
Leo and Troy.
Hey, hi, how are you?
All
Yes,
right.
Troy, begin.
Nice to meet everyone. It is my first time here. Currently, I'm pretty much a database developer working with more so on the Microsoft stack. Besides that, I'm a SQL instructor 2 nights a week. For a couple of years from SSRS, SSAS, SSIS. My current title for where I'm at is a database analyst, but I do development as well, more so the C# language. It's now the front end, JavaScript, all that fun stuff, CSS, whatnot, web services, all that good stuff. It's been about 8 years since I've been out in the market, and I'm just sort of looking ahead, and right now sort of delving into all the cloud technologies because I know that's where everything is going, even though I don't like the cloud too much, but just trying to be more proactive than reactive, and decided, just to get back out in the community and just to network, see what's out there and sort of get out here again, just talk with everyone. And so that's why I'm here. Nice to meet you guys.
Are you getting involved with some of the other meetup groups? Some of the SQLs?
I do plan on it. This is actually my first. So I've been getting these emails I've been avoiding for the past 5 or 6 years. All the recruiters and all the emails and stuff, and so now it's like, wow, actually getting my foot back out. And this is actually my first group, but I will.
I'll post a couple link meetups for you in the chat.
What is that background behind you?
This is the possible future smart city that we find. Smart city. Yep. I don't know if you guys know about it, but they've been talking about it. They're working on it. So.
I've never seen it before, but where is it? Or where is it proposed to be?
Well, I'll say this much. I know that China has got a big head start on us technologically, and so
I think there's one like that in Singapore.
I think they're
Written on the roof.
So I also posted a link into the chat session. I produce a weekly summary of the IT events that are happening in South Florida. A whole bunch of meetup groups. Of course, right now they're all virtual, but eventually they'll start going back to actual ones. Look, And I don't think I've seen anybody yet planning a physical meetup event in South Florida yet. I think
There's no insurance companies underwriting that right now.
say again?
There's no insurance companies underwriting that right now.
Well, and the locations as well. So the places like Funky Buddha, the tap rooms are all still closed, and and there's a lot of the schools have been good about hosting. You know, Nova Southeastern have been great hosts for meetup groups for many years.
Well, just so everybody knows, Nova is planning on having classes as normal this fall. They have installed camera equipment, all their classrooms. They'll have a choice whether they want to take the lectures physically in there or if they want to do it in dorm rooms. But they are dorms are going to be open. The state yesterday, the board of the State University Board of Chancellors approved all the university's plans to reopen in fall to some level. What that means yet, they're all given a lot of latitude to make some decisions. I was looking at Florida Gulf Coast University because a friend of mine's kids go there, and again, they're going to have to keep that kind of 50% in the classroom. So they're going to put certain priorities. Freshman classes, people that are first time to college, are going to be a priority. Anything that requires actual lab work within a classroom, and then certain senior project classes. So it'll be interesting to see just how many physically return to classrooms this fall.
So, Don, see your hand is up. Do you want to make a quick intro? You're on mute.
Yeah, this is Don Sutton. With Dial Interactive, and I used to attend a lot of these events with John McLaughlin there, and then I have a consulting firm, Dial Interactive, and we do unified communication stuff all over the country. And so typically I travel, so I've been gone for the last about 2 years. So I've been able to make a lot of the events, and so the one project just wound up. It was up in Michigan, so I was like the last guy to get a flight out of Michigan around mid. I was supposed to be there until the end of the month, and I told them I had to leave because they were, that was when they were shutting down the borders to Canada and flights. And I said, look, guys, for me to get home from Michigan, it's going to take about 120 gallons of gas, and it's not going to be pretty bad to drive. So I'm glad to come back and be able to join John's events here. He does a great job putting this thing on.
So are you seeing a pickup in business with people relying now more on communications?
Our business dropped about 60% from the first quarter. So we had a couple projects that got canceled, and then I got a few that are just on hold. Where one's in New Jersey and one's in Delaware and one's in Michigan. And the one in Michigan was the one where they had natural disaster where the dam broke, John. So that's where I was up there in Michigan working.
Wow.
The dam broke. Where the Dow DuPont works through the plant. There's 40 square miles, and so it's pretty bad. So that was going to be offline, I think, for a little bit. But overall, I think from what I've seen, it looks like stuff's kind of on hold. People are, I think, trying to figure out their work effort, and we pushed a lot of people to remote agents, so we had a lot of that stuff already reconfigured to be able to work using the Avaya 1X communicator and using Cisco IP communicator phones and the Jabber phones on the Cisco platform. So a lot of that was already in place. So a lot of it was just kind of pulling the triggers and helping a couple companies kind of move their people home. But it's surprising. I mean, most companies have moved everybody home. So even my daughter works for Walmart, and they're not looking at going back on site until the end of the year. Kind of back to that liability issue of just not wanting the liability until that gets resolved. So that's what I'm saying.
I think
I'm a professor at the University of Miami,
for the white collar workers.
specializing in
So a lot of
accounting and
that's
IT
kind of putting a wrench in a lot of
and
stuff.
futures, algo, reverse engineering,
All of our stuff's been on site.
looking for testing
So
the
any
gain
other, you speak, you
on your
attendees?
ROI,
Want you to take your microphone off?
tapping the SERP. using phone
Alejo.
vanity phone number
Hello everyone, how are you?
that spell a URL
I'm,
with
I'm,
you
I'm from
to
Colombia,
live
but
of
my
companies.
challenge is to stepping into US market, and I want to begin in Miami and Florida because it's like for Latin American company the easiest way to go there. I was there in March, and then when I came to my country, they began the lockdown. And now I'm in my country at this moment. I'm in Colombia, in Bogota.
How has the virus impacted life in Bogota?
Yes, we're in a lockdown, and I've been here for 90 days, and I only went. I live in the countryside, and I only went once for Bogota. And now in Latin America is exploding. The COVID is exploding at the moment. In Colombia too, it's increasing the cases. Then I think we are taking care, but my wife is doctor. She's a doctor. Then she has to go to the city every day. We are taking care, but you don't know.
Well, thanks for joining us.
I can't imagine what this.
And I work for a marketing and automation company, and for us the COVID is increasing the business at this moment. Yes, no, it's not common for a lot of companies, but for us it's increasing the business in all countries. We are in 8 countries with 1,500 customers. For us it's a good time, but for many customers there are like 70%
this is
above the sales.
demonstration
It is very, very strong
of
the impact.
tapping
of
the
COVID
search
in
engine results page, streaming from my cell phone.
Anybody else or first timers?
I was here 2 weeks ago, but this is the first time actually having a beer with you guys.
Right.
I gotta jump off. See y'all later.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Yes.
Cool. Was that a Funky Buddha beer by any chance?
It is. It's a flirty hint.
Yeah.
A
I don't know
wheat
that.
beer.
No, which is better, which is worse. Is it better that you have a Florida beer, or is it worse that I recognized it with a fraction of a second view? I do remember Funky Buddha when they expanded the facility and they opened up the bottling plant, and you can view the beers go by from the plate area.
Sounds like you've had a lot of training. Put your glove in one of the bottles.
That's like a wave as it goes by.
No, like Laverne and Shirley.
Get that.
Oh, no, yes. Too American of a reference there.
You weren't here when it was on.
Right. Almost like it was a spin-off of another show. Maybe.
Yeah, well, Funky Buddha isn't, they're no longer, a few years ago, they were bought out by Constellation, I think, bought them. They're no longer a nice local brewery anymore.
Right. But they seem to have done a pretty good job in terms of not really changing what they do too much.
Yeah.
As a positive impact.
Well, they used to be located in Boca.
Yeah, that's where they grew it.
Yeah.
Now they just export the profits to another area.
Yeah. Well, they're much bigger now. I mean, it used to be like a local lounge sort of thing.
Yeah.
That had bands and.
Yeah, but that's why you allow yourself to be bought out so you can get the money.
So here's a beer question for everybody. Who is the largest American manufacturer, American-owned manufacturer of beer in the United States?
Anyway,
Well, they're the oldest, right?
Yep.
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
No,
Sam Adams?
they're a foreign owned.
Are they?
Who? Yeah. Sammy, who said Sammy?
Sam Adams
Sammy
from
wins.
Boston. Yeah.
Sam Adams is now
Yeah.
Bush was bought out. They're, I think, InBev owns them.
Right.
forget who owns Coors is owned by Constellation, the one that bought. And I don't think they're an American. I'm not sure they're an American-owned company. So yeah, it's
But
Sam
what?
Adams now.
Jeff.
And whoever said Yingling's
Yeah.
number 2. They're the second largest now.
Right.
Has anybody seen the cool InBev Keurig machine? Any cocktail drinkers? So they have a new machine. Looks a little bit like Keurig. Has pods, and it has kind of a seltzer pod also on it. So you take the pod, which has the alcohol, you put it in the machine, you make all these mixed drinks perfectly mixed with this new machine.
Like those soda machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is much better.
Right.
So is it condensed or evaporated syrup of liquor, or is it, you know,
Yeah,
it's the actual constituted liquor with all the liquid in it, or?
Yeah, it is concentrated, because I know when I first heard about it, I was talking to the Bud distributor when I was Bush distributor. I was over living on the other coast, and he used to tell me about it before it came out. He said one of the big concerns was having, especially college kids, because when we're in college, we all do stupid things, just puncturing those and drinking right out of there versus
Right.
all that concentrated alcohol.
Yeah, the ethyl alcohol you wouldn't be able to shrink it any, but so it'd be 100% alcohol, a pretty high percentage,
Yep.
and then mix it with different flavors. That's an interesting thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked for NCR in the 70s when they invented the Electrobar. The bars had them. You just pull up the soda thing and punch any drink you want. Oh, yeah. My friend worked in QA. Part of his job was to buy bottles of liquor, put part of the tubing in them that they use, and then taste it after a month. I always wanted that job. But it went away because people like to see the bartender make a drink, you know.
It's part of the show.
Yeah.
I saw a robotic bartender last summer.
Oh, really? He shakes it up?
No. It's just like a robotic arm. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those old robotic arms. Oh, in that Star Wars movie, where the robotic arm goes to try to grab that disc right at the end.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But it's like a central platform, and then it just mixes up drinks. But it was kind of weird.
So I saw another interesting robot, a little GIF, and it was an office wall that was freshly painted, and then the robot went along, up and up, and basically painted museum quality pictures. Wow. So it was a wall printer.
Wow. Well, we got a startup here. We have a startup in town. The gentleman his background is in the floral industry. His dad was on one for years. He developed, a CRM for the sector. And now he's working on a robotic arm a robot that'll put together any arrangement you want. So imagine you program it in, every one of them that look, picture perfect, just like you see it on the screen.
I haven't heard much about the 3D printing as opposed to the past couple of years. Have you guys heard anything about that recently, past year or two or so? 3D printing.
We used it for a while on some prototype plastic. We were doing some small plastic shells or covering for overprinted circuit boards, and the only issue you gotta be aware of on some of the things that we found is that it has a tendency to sort of bow. We're making small things about 4 inches by 4 inches with a little opening, and the top would bow a little bit over time. So for quick prototypes it's fine, but if it's any kind of production thing, it's probably not really cost effective.
You don't want to use the cheap ones.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, for prototype stuff, proof of concept. So that's what we use. Again, it was plastic shells.
I was just saying, that's just your plastic printers. I mean, you really have to look at the whole sector.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's called, we've got additive technology. We have an incredible manufacturer here. Once COVID's over, maybe we can arrange to have a Tech Lauderdale open house there is called Centavia. They have 3D metal additive machines in there that use the powder and create a lot of one-off parts and stuff for the airline industry and for the aircraft industry.
Right.
And phenomenal technology. I mean, just absolutely incredible. And they said they're getting their costs down where they're getting close to be able to manufacture multiple parts for the same price you might forge or another, metal process. So you drive by, you'd never know it was a manufacturing. It looks just like another
Right here in
office.
Hollywood, huh?
Right in Hollywood. They're back there in the this side of 95, where the right off the interstate, across from where the
West Side
airport is.
95?
Pardon? Yeah,
West
West
Side
Side
95?
West Side 95. What's the really cool seafood
River
restaurant
Park?
back there where you get
Oh,
been there for ages and ages?
You're not talking about Rusk again. That's up by Griffin.
Yeah,
Oh, it's up there?
yeah.
Oh, that's Hollywood, huh? I thought that would be like Dania or Fort Lauderdale.
No, they're called Hollywood there. Well, actually, I think they call it Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale. It all gets kind of.
Yeah.
What's the
We
name of
won't one municipality or another, right?
It's Centavia, Sintavia.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's all kinds of 3D printing. Some can do metal now. There's ones that'll do rubber. They're all different prices and types of machines. I used to do designs. The engineers were in Taipei, and they would send me the file, and I'd print them out in our lab and then evaluate the parts. But they were just a prototype plastic. They were very brittle, but I could try the parts. But yeah, there's.
Question. What do you guys, what's your opinion on synthetic meat?
Well,
Has tremendous potential.
I love the Beyond Burger, not so enamored with the Impossible Burger myself, but I've only had the Impossible from Burger King and they burn it. So it could be fine. I've just never tried it not burned. But Beyond Burger at BurgerFi, Beyond sausages, Beyond everything I've tried, I love it.
Well, and how of those? What are they based on? Are they plant-based or are they? Yeah. So they're.
Oh, good point.
They're meat alternatives.
Synthetic meat. Okay.
Right. So I think the interesting work has been done around growing
Lab grown.
proteins, lab-grown meat.
Know what you're talking about, Troy?
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, for me, my thing is, and I've done a little research, not enough as yet, as a account for the research. It's just what they have on the process and what the ingredients of certain thing, if it's healthy for us or not. That's my take.
I remember last year, or the year before, there was one company, they had a prototype burger, literally prototype, and I think it was like $50,000 for this burger. It was a 50-gram burger, and it was lab-grown meat, so more of kind of proof of concept. But I think the market has moved more towards the plant-based, because I think that has more scalability in the short term. But for the long term, I think the lab-grown meat has tremendous potential.
I've heard, don't
A lot
quote me
of
on the
money
exact
being
number,
spent.
but I've heard that lab-grown burger that was $50K years ago
Right.
is down like sub $100 now. So like they've gone way
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Still not feasible for people to buy, but getting there.
The CEO of Impossible Meats was on Mad Money last night. He was saying they're now emulating what a hamburger tastes like, and they've matched that, but they'll be working on making things taste better in the future. So he was predicting it would take over.
Well, I wonder how healthy are they? How much have they had to add in it, fats and other things like that to give it the same kind of flavors and textures?
That's not what's causing it, guys. So it was great scientific research. So they found out that the hamburger, what we like in the taste of the hamburger, comes from hemoglobin. Well, globins are in everything. So there's legumoglobin, which is the plant-based, and so that's what they're producing. They're pulling that, I think, from soy, and they're pulling the same, and they found out that's the taste element. And so that's one of their biggest, they killed the rest of the market. Two of them have obliterated the normal, you know, marketplace for veggie burgers. I mean, these things have just taken over because the taste is just phenomenal compared to most everything else out there.
The health you're talking about, John, they're actually worse for you. So, like the Beyond Burger has like 10 or 20 times the amount of sodium, near equal the amount of fat of a regular 80-20 normal hamburger meat. So it's not necessarily with the macros necessarily better for you. I think the plant-based, like the Impossible and Beyond, are just plant-based options for those that don't want to eat anything that had a face on it.
Impossible Burger said they were zero cholesterol, had the same amount of iron, which would match the globin thing, as Cecil was talking about. But they can control the fat and the other stuff.
If they have to jack up the sodium to make it taste good. It's unfortunate.
He didn't say that, of course.
Right.
Of course not.
Almost as if he was talking to investors.
Something like that.
Yeah. For me, it's just, you know, when the government get their hands in the process, you know, it's just, you gotta double or triple check everything. So that's just my concern about synthetic meat. And I think that's one of the reasons why that with our food supplies being affected right now, it's beginning to be affected. Any kind of meat and such. But yeah. That's my take on that.
When you say government, do you mean the elected officials or the companies that actually run a
Not the elected officials, but the main companies. Yeah, I know where you're going with that. But yeah.
Yeah, the so-called advancements in food production over the past 50 to 80 years have all been for quantity.
Right.
Almost zero of them have been for quality, right?
Well,
that's on each individual decide.
Right, but I think also what happened was, you know, historically, there have been a number of times when people looking globally were worried about could we feed the population. So the emphasis was getting, you know, highly calorific food as cheap as possible, available to as many people as possible.
And they succeeded.
And you know that that section of Fantasia where, you know, the rooms or the water has been carried out and it just keeps on going and gets out of control. I think it's a little bit like that. So it's like, go make it as cheap and calorific as possible. Yes, sir. And we're working as hard as possible. And no one said, well, wait a minute, we've reached our goal. Now we need to focus on other stuff.
Yeah.
Other characteristics are useful. Right?
We almost always have unintended consequences from everything.
Yeah, you set up a system with incentives, and the incentives drive the behavior.
AI. Protect humans from harm.
So,
Robot.
In fact, I just saw a little hint of a trailer. I think it was Apple or have a trailer running right now for the Isaac Asimov series Foundation. So Foundation is Isaac Asimov's most famous science fiction series, but it has a huge scope, way beyond Star Wars in terms of scope and complexity of characters and time. So no one's really been interested in addressing it, but it looks like Apple are going to try and make that for their the TV services. Game of Thrones Game of Thrones level blockbuster. It'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off.
They just put that out 2 days ago.
So another topic is talking about AI is the super intelligence that they're trying to build, because I mean there's general artificial intelligence, that they've been working on the super intelligence, and now we have autonomous drones, which is they make the kill decision, and it's just like that's a topic that's kind of
I saw a very cool video that when you first see the video, it looks like a TED talk, and it's designed, and the presenter has small autonomous robots.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it was very well done. And they throw it into the audience and it zips around.
Yeah.
And then they describe how they use facial recognition and a small explosive can target an individual and to targeted killings. And you can imagine them. It goes on and they're delivering them by airplanes and they're flying through whatever and taking out just the enemy soldiers. So it's like, oh, that sounds really good. And then they do the little twist, which is now it's Capitol Hill. And oh my God, these things, they came from nowhere and they killed all the senators of one party. So what happens when you give control of weapons to the systems autonomously, and then what happens if that gets out of control? And then just to put into reality, 2 years ago, my son used to work for Lincoln Laboratories up in the Boston area, and Lincoln Labs is a research facility, and they had a demonstration where they had a high-speed warplane drop off a payload, and the payload broke open. There was a lot of small autonomous vehicles, but the first one was controlled, and all this swarm of autonomous vehicles followed that one. So, yeah, so people are developing that technology.
Pretty scary stuff.
Pretty scary. But the small autonomous ones, I've been watching videos of those for a couple of years. They're fascinating. There was one demo from a couple of years ago where I think there was about 6 or 7 of these autonomous drones about this size. They take some ropes and they build a rope bridge. So it's like one rope across the bottom and then two ropes above it, and then they wind between them. So you could have the kind of rope bridge you might go across a ravine. But there's no humans involved.
Yeah, that's scary.
Right.
Did you guys hear about, I think Facebook had to take, they had it on a private network, 2 of their AIs that they started to talk to each other, they built their own language and that offline.
No, I think it was Google, yeah. So Google invested a few years ago in a British company that had like 100 PhDs, and they demonstrated the AIs learning how to play classic Atari video games like Tank and Breakout with just the inputs there. So you have the video inputs and the paddle inputs, so video output and paddle inputs. And the AIs learned to play, I think there's about 30 or 40 of those games, and they learned to play the majority of them in a fairly short period of time, like within days. And at a level where they could do 2-player games against humans and beat humans the majority of the times. And then that same team went on to build an AI program to play the game of Go, which is very big in other parts of the world, but not so much in America. And now it has reached the point where they can defeat world champions. And at first people think it's like brute force, but it really isn't brute force. One of the challenges is they're neural network systems. So the challenge there is that they iterate, so they basically come up with a network and multiple networks to compete and see which one does a better job. And after a little while, you've got a very complex neural network that's very effective. But you can't query it and say, well, how did you come up? How did you do that? How does that work? And the answer is the neural network. Well, it really doesn't provide you much, insight. The flip side of it is that approach, in combination with big data, is that you can get accurate, from a certain perspective, neural networks, but they reproduce the effects of the data that you used. And the classic one is demonstrating the problem is parole. So again, not an area I was particularly familiar with, but you think about it, we have a huge population of people in jail. And large percentages of them eventually get out, but they don't just say, oh, your time's up, you're out. I think that happens for a very small percentage of the prison population. What usually happens is, we might let you out, but we're going to have to look at you to determine, is it safe to let you out now? In fact, there's processes, so they'll go through that multiple times. So a given prisoner may actually go to a parole board multiple times over the years. So that's a huge number of parole evaluation events. So that's been automated. and then they've taken the data and said, well, when these people go into the community, what's the likelihood they'll reoffend and come back into prison? And if it's high, then they won't get grant parole. So once they ran that,
I'm curious to see how much the traditional institutional racism that was inherent in those processes
well, that's
before
exactly what happened.
propagate into the AI.
That's exactly what happened. And it wasn't. The racism is in the society, not in the algorithm.
But in the builder of the algorithm.
Well, not in the building, right? The data. So right. So if you have a society where racial minorities to go back into the communities, and if they have a higher probability of being with felons, but by the way, the number one reason for being in jail in California, this blew my mind as well. Which I think the number one reason for being in jail in California is parole violation. Oh, in other words, you did something, you went to jail, they let you out, you hung out with your buddy, you smoked a joint, and you get busted for having a joint and hanging out with another felon, so boom, you're back in jail.
Back in my prior life, I lobbied for a drug rehab center, and I can just tell you, it was a long-term nonprofit, and that was one of the things that was almost mandatory. You're going to rehabilitate someone, you cannot put them right back into the same environment you took them out of, because it's the environment that causes it. So I don't care how good you are and how clean you are when you come out of a drug rehab center. If you go back to hang out with all your buddies that are using drugs, guess what you're going to start doing soon?
Right, and then if you also have you have a sign on you that says, convict, your ability to get at work is greatly reduced.
Right.
So further reinforcing it. So I think it's those systems, but again, now people looked at the data and it actually was kind of it's a challenge. So the data was accurately predict who would be reoffending, but you can't really use the data because the data was based upon inherent problems in the society. But you still have millions of people who have to go through parole. So I'm not sure what the outcome of that was, what they're doing with those applications processes, or if they're trying to reweight them, or maybe they turn around and use that data and say, well, if this person is more likely to reoffend, then maybe we need to put additional resources in there to address Cecil's concern, saying, yeah, do you have the right kind of support system?
I'd like to ask a question about the autonomous weapons. Do you know if any part of that is covered by the Geneva Convention?
Well, I think there is a convention right now prohibiting automation making the decisions about killing. But I think there's a lot of work being done in that area because the purpose of the video we talked about was to scare people and make them realize that was a practical thing to do just around the corner. But people have been doing this already. I mean, in terms of
I'm sure Russia would never violate the Geneva Convention, right?
Right. Or the United States, right? I mean, what we're doing with people.
Well, I got one more for you guys. So, I don't know if you guys know, but what do you think of the Chinese social credit system? Because I do know they're planning on implementing it here, and it's just over the board.
Oh, sure.
Who's proposing we have it here? I haven't heard of that.
I'm not sure exactly who's proposing, but I just do know that it's out there that of more surveillance on us, according to their surveillance system and what's going on. So that's a topic that's kind of
that's been part of my concern with the whole coronavirus, COVID, and all the other things that have happened. Like everybody clamors for security and knowing what things are going on, but really all that does is promote more and more oversight. And oversight by who? And who watches the watches, right? The old 1984 thing.
Right.
I don't know, man.
Well, part of this,
a lot of troubles here in America to prevent that from happening.
Part of the social programs in China also include things like facial recognition. Yeah. Right. Can Craig read it? What does it say, Stephen? Oh, your audio.
You're off mute, but we can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Oh, now we can.
Now we can.
Okay.
Well, might be blocking the microphone
Yeah,
when you
you
put
block-
it in your telephone. So what does it say?
COVID-19 notification, turn on, Rocky.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That was the last update. Eventually, they turned it on by default.
Right.
Yeah.
But was it an opt-in?
No, it was not an option.
You have to opt in.
Right.
But if there's one that you don't have to opt in that's already on that nobody is able to turn off, that the carriers actually use supposedly anonymized, and it's only metadata, not your data. Yeah, we know how that goes.
Right.
Where is this? In China or the United States?
No, here.
Your phone.
Verizon, AT&T,
Right now.
the government has access to their network data about, how many ID, what's it called? Not your SIM ID, but your UCC ID or your
Yeah.
INI.
Yeah.
What antennas they connected to and triangulated your position.
Wow.
Supposedly
I
anonymized.
wonder if the off button works.
No.
Yeah.
About a year ago, they were able to track the president for the day. Not that they were tracking his tweets or his phone, but one of his staffers had some software on his phone that left him open to location services, whatever he was using, and they were able to hack into that database and track that individual. And then, of course, you can find out where the president's going to be in a day. I mean, his schedule's released. They just don't tell you what tracks and so they compared it to where he was that day, and it matched completely. And it was all because. So how many of us, turn on, and a lot of people on this call may not, but let's just say the average American, how many of us want all the convenience, so when we walk in Publix, it informs us of the sales of the day. How many stupid people walk in there and it says, do you want to use our Wi-Fi? Oh, God, yeah, I don't want to use my Wi-Fi, I'll use your Wi-Fi. They go on the open system, and the next thing you know, all of this software, this tracking software, is tracking us. So, to heck with the government. That's bad enough. Now we got third parties and hackers taking all this information. I mean, you talk about big data. I mean, I don't even know how we keep our arms around it.'s so much out there today. I mean, everything is tracked.
Good news, bad news. That is, there's there's so much data that there's a degree, a small degree of protection, anonymity in the crowd because there's just so much data. But that's where automation comes in. And even if it's not working well, right, the facial recognition software, I think there's been a lot of discussion about that recently. It doesn't do as nearly as good a job as people like to think it does.
Only on white men.
And it does a particularly good job on white men, right? But again, that ties into the data sets that have been used to train it. It ties into the camera systems that people have been building.
One point I saw that Microsoft and Amazon, I think, said that they're not going to sell the facial recognition to the governments.
Right. And I don't think that was through. I think that was more because I think they fear liability. Like the police officer pulls you over and you get arrested because your face matched something, and it turns out it was an inaccurate match, and it came from Microsoft software or Amazon software. Now they'll try and go after those people until they can do a better job of matching.
That's all.
Have somebody to blame.
That's all fine, but you know what? I'd rather 5 mistakes happen and they stop Bob the terrorist, who's on the watch list,
right?
Because they had it at the airport and they caught him and they saved 10,000 lives because he was going to blow something up.
Right.
I mean,
Depends on
most of us are
with those that are mistaken.
Well, that's about how we handle people, and there needs to be a lot more training on that for everybody. But also, we get into the argument, it's how you react to an officer also. I mean, I know anytime I've been pulled over, I'm as polite as can be, because I know that certain folks are more scared of them than they should be, but they're still intimidating to any of us. They're carrying a gun, we're not. We got a big taser, and half of them are half the size of a tank.
Improving
and,
lives,
a lot more training
increasing
needs to go into
connectivity
that.
across the
And
world.
they just are not.
That's the great promise offered by
They
data.
don't. But again, we need to have you know, it's just a balance. I mean, do we not use technology because it makes some mistakes if it saves lives? You know, I mean, where do we go? Because it's going to keep coming. I mean, technology is not going to end. Scary part on a security call the other day. Guy said he was on. Evidently, they've got some bots out there now that are really good in recreating voices.
Oh yeah.
And the guy
Adobe
said,
created a whole software package that can do it. The government told them not to release it.
Yeah.
well, it's out there because the guy said he got a call, and his boss is German, got a little accent. He said very distinct, talks in a very distinct manner. He said I could not tell the difference, and they're using it, calling people, and you think it's your boss telling you to hand over some. No, I need your password to do X, Y, Z, and next thing you know, it's some bot.
And the problem is that's what we tell people to do, right? We tell people if you think it's a pick up the phone and call them. Now that doesn't verify it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember seeing what you were saying. Adobe demonstrated it at a keynote speech. It was a couple of years ago, but they had somebody speaking, and then they had an editor see the voice lines, and you could see the text. So it was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You can see the waveforms, and then